deck.
The way we looked at it across the board, this one's a pretty important one. We believe Dilks to be a strong favorite in Modern. Bertarioni, I think, to be a slight favorite here in Standard.
Yeah, I think that one's close, but I do believe Bertarioni's a slight favorite in Standard.
Do you have a player you like in this matchup, or a deck you like?
I think I'm going to give the nod here to Syed. This is just a matchup that he's been playing all weekend, and we saw Batterman kind of dismantle Teamer earlier, and that was with a bit more air and being a bit more combo focused. Syed leaning more into things like Life from the Loam, Wrenn and 6, Knight of the Reliquary. That's just going to give Syed more points in the matchup.
So I think I'm going to go ahead and split the booth on this one. I actually like Daryl in the matchup. There's a lot of technique going on with this one, and I think, Daryl is a storied legacy player. I think last time we saw it, Batterman took a close matchup, and because Batterman is a called legacy, specialist here, I think was able to drive it. I want to think that Daryl can get a similar edge here.
Sure.
But either way, the matchup is really close. It's going to come down a lot to how the players individually play and about how their draws shape up.
Right, and it looks like Syed's taking a mulligan there on the back table.
Yeah, Syed down to 6 here. Certainly, I think there's a lot of attractive things that Syed can do in this matchup. A turn 1, Mox Diamond land, Mox Diamond fetch land, Wrenn and 6, get back the land you discarded to Mox Diamond.
Ooh.
That is gross.
Yeah, that's a strong start and one that is going to just naturally beat up on what Daryl has if he doesn't have something like a Force of Will immediately, because then Daze never does anything. Spell Pierce probably doesn't do anything. Wasteland doesn't do anything, and that's just the backbone of these Teamer Delver decks.
For Zan, mulligan, plenty of lands in this one. See our other two matches already underway. Giant stack of artifacts for Rosh and Eapen. Usually a sign of good things. And Zan has kept on 6. So starts out on Taiga, and here we go with our finals. Zan's deck just 2 basic lands in it because he has that red splash. Does make him a bit more vulnerable to wastelands. We start off with 2 lands. Now, I'm a bit surprised to not see more action early on, especially from a non-blue deck.
And, there's a point where I see a Swords to Plowshares and a Life from the Loam in Zan's hand here. So this is just him taking a more reactive stance here.
See on Ayers' side, and the Teamer Delver is always about what you're playing around, not just what you're playing. You see a fetch land on turn 1, doesn't crack it. Turn 2 plays a fetch land and a Delver of Secrets, and you start to wonder things like, did you just draw that, or was this the plan all along?
Yeah, and because Ayers has Stifle, I have to imagine that that's what he's representing here.
Is there something specific he's looking to stifle?
Well, before, it was any lands that Syed might have, but because Syed has just gone natural dual land and a natural dual land, that's less likely.
Wasteland the pickup here for Syed. And wastes away the tropical island. Zan's hand, Horizon Canopy, Thespian's Stage, Life from the Loam. Looks like he has one other hiding out there. Might get a chance to see it. But right now he's going to try to loam that wasteland back. And that's actually a pretty threatening thing if you're playing Delver to see happen.
Right, this is the kind of thing where even if you counter it, Zan just gets to do it again next turn.
Right. Daryl's deck does not play basic lands, so recurring a wasteland goes a long way against him.
Right, this is a lot of why Syed kept the hand, is having a Life from the Loam just makes cards like Wasteland, and even if there's something like a Stray Ghost Quarter hiding out that could do it.
Back to Ayers we go. It's his own Wrenn and 6. Well, that certainly is a way to combat a wasteland. You just keep getting your own lands back.
Right, right.
And you see how Gerald can really just aggressively do things like a Wrenn and 6 on this board. Because his opponent is not playing a blue deck, there's just not much that's going to be done about it.
Right, Daryl knows that all of his cards are going to resolve against Zan, at least pre-board. There's Red Elemental Blast and some more counterplay in post-board games, but most of Daryl's plan is going to go off without a hitch. It's Zan, whether or not he can interact on his own turn, or try to go over the top of whatever Ayers is doing.
Thespian Stage up the front. So yeah, Elvish Reclaimer now the play here for Zan. Makes Horizon Canopy. And passes. So Daryl gets to untap with this Wrenn and 6. It's interesting, right? Both players with this land recursion. We have Wrenn and 6 on one side and Life from the Loam on the other.
The issue is this is something that's going to end up favoring Zan in a long game. The only lands that Ayers is getting back are tropical islands, volcanic islands, and things that find tropical islands and things that find volcanic islands. Whereas Syed's basically come with spells attached to them. The best case scenario for Ayers is if he had something like Fiery Islet in his deck, but he left those at home this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we saw last time in this matchup is if Daryl can get Wrenn and 6 all the way to Ultimate and start retracing things like Stifle. That's actually really difficult for Zan to deal with.
Look at this dredge.
See dredges.
3 lands, including a Tranquil Thicket and a basic land.
And that's a lot. Yeah, snow-covered plains, and you mentioned a Tranquil Thicket. The cycling land, especially with Life from the Loam, does great work.
And it grows the Elvish Reclaimer to a 3/4?
Yeah, that takes Wrenn and 6 down to 2.
Unbelievable.
Green Sun Zenith from Zan. It was for X equals 1. That means Daryl can spell snare it. He will.
Now, is Syed just stuck in a spot where he had to choose whether he wanted to play around Spell Pierce or Spell Snare?
Another daze picked up from Daryl. His hand almost all lands. Wrenn and 6 back up to 3 finds a fetch land. Daryl says go. It is 2 days, and that might be 5 lands.
Oh, no. I mean, this is kind of the problem with Wrenn and 6 is you need to have a way to convert what's pretty close to blank cardboard into other resources. Without a brainstorm, getting a bunch of lands back is not going to be very good in your 1 and 2 mana spell deck.
Elvish Reclaimer attacks down the Planeswalker. And if Daryl's hand is just 2 dazes and lands, I think they're going to get ugly here. Wasteland from Zan. Is he going to start going to work? Remains to be seen. 3 mana. He'll go for Knight of the Reliquary. That's going to get dazed. See, yes, Zan pays.
As a matter of fact, I will tap my land. Thank you for asking.
And Daryl's going to do it again. It's a rough spot because this is not a great situation for Daryl, but he just can't let Knight of the Reliquary resolve.
No, and honestly, 2 cards from Daryl's deck is a happy exchange for a Knight of the Reliquary, especially at the point that it's a 3-mana 6/6 with the abilities that it has.
Back to there we go. The draw's a Brainstorm. Well, he has.
That's what he needed.
That is a draw 3 in every way.
That's so good for him.
And can he get 3 spells? Yeah, you see just how fast he puts those hands. Says, "Hey, we're in business."
All right, puts 2 lands back.
just 3 more in the hand. Don't worry. We'll draw the next Brainstorm, and it'll be fine. Yeah, finds one of the tropical islands he put back. I believe he put back the last trop and the last volcanic island.
Oh yeah, so now there is only a volcanic island as far as fetchables go in the deck.
And as you might have seen, we saw that stack of artifacts on the modern table. That did convert to a win for Rosh and Eapen. So 1-0. First blood here is on the side of Syed, Eapen, and Bertarioni.
And you know, that's not that... It's not as big as an upset as it was last round. So Eapen's on the play and does have a more combo-oriented build of the outcome deck. That's to say, a faster version of the deck.
And Daryl, one of the cards he picked up off that draw 3 was a Tarmogoyf, so that'll block Elvish Reclaimer.
That's a nice pickup here.
Now, still a lot of things to deal with. Reclaimer can find a Dark Depths. There's still that Loam Tranquil Thicket going on. And maybe another Knight of the Reliquary in Zan's hand. And it is.
I think that's bigger than Tarmogoyf. I'm no expert.
Yeah, you know, and it's... if it isn't yet,
4,
it's going to be.
6, and 6 is bigger than 5. Yeah,
okay.
It is bigger.
Yeah, ways to deal with a Knight of the Reliquary. So Daryl's list, there's a lot to like and dislike about it. It is a stock list, and by that I mean there's very few one-ofs. Instead of that, he's cut most of them just to play more copies of the core cards. So the downside here is I don't really know how he gets past a Knight of the Reliquary.
Yeah, no, this is not good for Daryl.
Zan,
is that another Knight of the Reliquary off the top? Ooh.
And yeah, Daryl just says, yeah, I really can't do anything about this. And that looks like a scoop, so Zan Syed takes a game 1, and now they're up 2-0.
Gotta be comfortable with such an early lead in a finals like this.
Yeah, especially when we mentioned that we thought Standard was the match that they had were the favorite in.
Right.
And they win the other 2.
Oh, that's gotta feel good. I feel like, if anything, here's how Amusum, what are we going to call him? Amusum is thinking about things.
Okay.
Dilks is likely favored in his match. But then there needs to be some sort of upset on one of the other 2 tables.
Okay.
I know you put Ayers as a favorite here.
Well,
but
after that game, I mean, certainly not anymore. Not enough of a favorite that I think down a game he's still a favorite.
And I think that game just kind of illustrated what goes on, where if Ayers doesn't have the Delver into Daze into Wasteland you out of the game draw,
right,
it's just can be really hard for Ayers because Elvish Reclaimer is kind of a threat on its own. It's its own 1-mana 3-power thing. And Knight of the Reliquary just kind of commands the battlefield. This is the story of what that card's done against Delver for the better part of a decade now.
So if we look at sideboards, I want to talk about Daryl's first. They definitely improve on sideboarding here. 3 Submerges should all be excellent against this deck.
Submerge is so good. You can even get tricksy with it, where if Syed goes to, say, activate an Elvish Reclaimer or a Knight of the Reliquary, you can respond and then put the Reliquary back on top of the deck, and
then
it shuffles away. And
really good trick.
Oh, yeah.
So normally I would think that would give Daryl some edge, but Zan has shown up with some good stuff for this matchup, too. He's got 2 copies of Choke and 2 Red Blasts.
Choke is absolutely wonderful in this matchup. So is Red Elemental Blast, Pyroblast as well, by extension. And even past that, it feels like Syed just really wants to stick 1 or 2 big creatures and then ride them to victory.
So how does Daryl... I don't know that he actually has a way to answer a Choke on the board. He doesn't... You know, it's a green enchantment, so his blasts don't do anything about it.
No, he's really looking to just counter them. Force of Negation is
Does he have to keep Force of Negation in this matchup?
Well, Force of Negation is not that bad. It still hits Green Sun Zenith, which is a bunch of virtual copies of Knight of the Reliquary, and it actually exiles Life from the Loam,
Okay.
which is that's very, very real. We saw that last game where Zan was kind of able to just jam an early Loam for not a ton of value because dredging it had a bunch of value.
So things still will remain kind of tight here. And then, yeah, Zan, I do think, just has the advantage.
Yeah.
So talking about the chairs we have in the feature match area, they are brought to you by Carnox. Carnox, we've got your back 10% at checkout. You can visit that at carnox.com/SCG.
It's no go.carnox.com.
No. It's a chair. It's for sitting, not for going.
So is it sit.carnox.com?
No, don't type that in. That will not go where you want it to go.
Oh.
Or sit.
What about where you want to Carnox?
Well, you'd have to ask them. They're in the feature match area.
Oh, that took me a second. What? No, they're not. Oh, the chairs.
Whoa! All right, so both players actually get deck lists face up here for sideboarding. So Daryl's actually going to know about the chokes, which I think that's interesting because it talks about, you know, we were talking about sideboarding Force of Negation. Maybe he wants to do it, maybe he doesn't, but he gets to be a bit more informed about the decision now.
Right, and I think a lot of what he's going to do is something to the effect of cut Spell Pierce, bring in Force of Negation. Because that soft permission is going to be worse against the Mox Diamond deck.
For Ayers, Dilks, and Magayesh going into this tournament, as a team, they had played 7 opens here on the tour. They had top-8'd 6 of them. I think the question now you have to ask is whether this counts as 7 for 8.
Well,
it's pretty close.
it's a strong squad.
That much is clear.
We're talking about, what, a 4% difference at this point or something?
4%?
6 for 7 versus 7 for 8?
Oh, great. Nice. Okay, so we're talking about 87
it's like 5%
versus...
I guess.
It's not too much different.
No.
It's like, what, 2%?
You're the math person?
Well, it's 14%. It's 80... Yeah. It's 86 versus 87.5. It's not too much different.
It's 2.5 much different.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you start doing as well as they do, it's really hard to move the percentage anymore. Like 7/8 to 8/9 is barely more than 1%.
That one open they missed the top 8 of, brutal for their percentage.
Yeah, it's just really hard to come back from that. Eapen and Dilks in game 2 already. Syed and Ayers starting it. Golos deck still doing Golos things.
"20 minutes into game 1, I'm sure they're resolving their, 35th Field of the Dead trigger.
Eventually, all the matches end up on Golos. Give it enough time. It's the true end game of this open.
You either die a Golos fighter or live long enough to see yourself become part of the Field of the Dead.
So Daryl will be on the play here for our second game.
That is going to benefit Daryl more than being on the play is going to benefit Zan. Generally speaking, just because that's going to let Ayers say stifle while on the play or develop a threat before he starts having to react to what Zan is doing. That's the absolute make or break of these Delver strategies because they aren't really designed to go long. They're designed to develop a threat and pressure the opponent while knocking them off balance just enough to actually put the game out of reach.
Zan down to 6. He was on 6 last game as well. But once he stuck a Knight of the Reliquary, was not a problem. Daryl's hand ran in 6 and some dazes. He was looking for some pressure, but instead he just got more lands.
And it's kind of the problem sometimes with a card like Wrenn and 6, where it's just adding a land to your hand each time if you don't have anything to do with the mana itself or immediately have a brainstorm to put it back. You just end up taking several turns off. This is not the first time Daryl Ayers has been in the finals with a Temur Delver strategy. This time he doesn't have Curd Ape, though. He has Hooting Mandrills. We see Choke at the front of Zan's 6.
How do we get this onto the battlefield?
I'm not usually one to try to give advice to the competitors, but
Yeah.
you should probably tap 3.
Tap 3. Oh, okay. All right. One of them needs to be green. That's the key step there.
Ooh, is
Actually,
that
is
another
that-
choke at the back?
It might be a Ramanap Excavator, but I think his hand, I think it's just like lands and chokes.
Yeah, I thought it was Random Excavator, 3 lands, 2 chokes.
It's got a plan. And a backup plan. And I think it is. It's both copies. Can he survive that long? We'll see. If his lands coming up there are all fetch lands, maybe. Daryl with a turn 1 Delver of Secrets, however.
I think this is just going to be a sorcery speed fetch from Zan to respect Stifle.
That's nice. They do have face-up deck lists, and Daryl is playing a 4 Stifle build. And Delver going to stay a 1/1 this turn. Tax Zan down to 18. Ponder from Ayers. And we have our last Game 1 result in John Rosum on Bant Golos. A quick victory there over on the standard table. First point for his team.
All right, bit of an upset.
Back to Zan we go. Getting closer to those chokes. It's going to be a wasteland, and he passes. And I like what Zan's doing here. He's bridging his way up with lands that Daryl won't target with Wasteland.
Right, you know, playing another Wasteland. Daryl's welcome to target it.
Yeah, you can try to waste it if he wants.
Of course, if Daryl has the Stifle, then you could
might do it.
Wasteland the Wasteland and then just stifle Zan's Wasteland activation.
Yeah, but then you lose. You're still 2 for 1ing yourself there.
Yeah, and it's tough to say if you do that, but with Zan not doing anything on the first couple of turns, it could just be the way where Daryl, rather than trying to fight the card advantage fight, is just trying to stymie Zan's development.
Certainly the more attacks he gets in with Insectile Aberration, the more we're going to start to see him do things like that.
Exactly.
A ponder from Daryl, but it's going to be a shuffle. He has hit Zan down to 15. And passes. Ren and 6 the draw for Zan. And my other question is, does he just start going for these chokes? It was the game plan.
Yeah, and it's tough because Ren and 6 is the kind of card that you almost just want to try to use as bait here, because as wild a sentence as this is, choke's just more powerful.
Here's choke. First attempt at it.
All right. This is Zan just saying, show me.
I like this from Zan. Don't get too fancy about it. Daryl brainstorms in response, tapping an island. Okay. Maybe things are going really well here. If he doesn't find the counterspell, that tap of a volcanic island is going to matter a lot. And it is a daze, so choke is countered.
Hey, now lets him pick up an island.
Okay, can reset it. Go back to 0, attacks in and puts Zan down to 12.
Doesn't even untap the insect elaboration.
Here's another Delver. Now Zan can cast choke again, but his life total's getting low here.
Yeah, this is the spot where even if you resolve a choke, you just take 6 twice and die.
Right. And there actually is Force of Will and 2 Submerge in Daryl's hand as well.
That just covers so many things from Zan.
More good news, Daryl's teammate Matthew Dilks picks up a win on Modern. Daryl hoping to put his team into the lead here, if he can hold on in Game 2.
I think there's a legitimate question if Zan were to jam the other choke here,
Would
if
Daryl
Daryl would
even
even
force
it. I don't think it matters.
I don't think he would. I think you're right. Zan doesn't have white mana in play. Path to Exile's the removal spell. Yeah, let it resolve.
Yeah, and 12 is actually a wild number where 6 is a 2-turn clock, but even if Delver doesn't transform, then it's just a 3-turn clock. So Zan's under some very serious pressure here.
Second choke with Wasteland up. Can pay for the days, but now we're going to see the answer to the question you'd mentioned.
I think you're just supposed to let this resolve.
Yeah, it's scary.
Right, just fight over things like swords to plowshares.
It resolves, and now Zan's going to use that Wasteland to go after a volcanic island. Or rather, to go after the fetch land. Well, that's interesting because is the top of the deck known right now?
It might be the 3rd card on a ponder. No, because he brainstormed.
And Daryl lets the fetch land get wasted. So, back to Daryl's turn. A transform, Zan down to 6.
Okay, Zan. I don't actually know how Zan gets out. Oh, no, is that a bolt?
Yeah, Daryl has a bolt and a Force of Will, and Zan's at 6. I don't see how Zan takes care of this. And he doesn't. So Daryl picks up a win. Their team was down 2-0, but now is up 3-2, and Daryl sends the legacy match to game number 3.
Yeah, I think what Zan maybe needed to do in that last turn was play Ren and 6 to try to shoot down the 1/1 Delver of Secrets. Daryl had a Force of Will, so I mean, there's a point where, nothing's getting through a Force of Will, right? But as far as things that don't just kind of leave him dead on the battlefield, that's one of them.
So they look back toward the sideboards. Now things are evened up. Daryl and Zan going to 3. Matthew Dilks and Roshin Eapen going to 3. If those matches split, it will then come down to standard, where Rosum leads Bertarioni 1-0.
And that last game is one that kind of shows how important it is for Daryl to be on the play, because he was making all of his decisions that game while playing from ahead. Whereas when he's playing from behind, he's having to both hold up mana to react to what Zan is doing, while also trying to find a pocket to develop his threat and begin pressuring Zan. There, Daryl only had to do one thing with his mana, and that's such a big deal.
So we'll start with the game 3 of Ayers and Syed. Zan will be on the play. Now, something I want to mention, Zan's been on a mulligan twice, and we haven't seen a Mox Diamond yet.
Right. And those are the things that define his most broken starts. Especially if he has a Mox Diamond on the play, those are the games where it just kind of feels like Daryl's going third.
Right.
So much on the line with this match. This is, especially for Bertarioni, this could completely change how far ahead or behind he is in the Players' Championship race. We know he's going to be getting into the top 3, which is exactly where you want to be able to punch your ticket to get into that Players' Championship at the end of the year. But with a win, that could shoot him all the way up to 2nd.
Zan, we have a keep on the play. And Daryl, a keep on the draw. So here we go. Game number 3. Zan for the first is going to be leading off.
His first 7-card hand of the match.
First 7-card hand of the match. What we saw in game 1 is that if Zan can stick a powerful 3-drop, Knight of the Reliquary or Choke,
those are going to be the games that he's able to win. He's just a little bit bigger than what Ayers is doing, and he wants to capitalize on that fact. So hitting land drops is the most important thing for him.
Starts on Elvish Reclaimer. Daryl's side had a Force of Will, not going to force that. And he'll go for Delver of Secrets. So threats on both sides.
Here, Zan really wants to put another land in the graveyard to grow this elf out of bolt range.
Say from Daryl's hand, a bunch of free spells. He has Daze, Force, and Submerge. So he lets Zan draw a card, and during the draw step, submerges the Elvish Reclaimer. And not much to be done about that out of Zan's deck. That'll just happen.
Yeah, not at all.
I love this here. Even with the Mox Diamond, Xander, if he has land Mox Diamond, Daryl has both a Force of Will and a Daze to counter anything like a possible Knight of the Reliquary. So Mox Diamond. Thespian's Stage discarded here. Looks like Sylvan Library in hand. Zan's first going to play a Daze Proof Swords to Plowshares.
Just trying to play things safe. Completely understandable. All Zan wants to do is extend the game where possible.
So Blast Zone and Sylvan Library from Zan. Will Daryl Daze or Force here? I don't think he can let this resolve.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. I believe I would be inclined to daze. This isn't the kind of thing you want to be dazing
Yeah.
most of the time.
Well, he's going to force, and I think the reason here, forceful pitching days, right? So pretty strange, because he has Wrenn and 6 in his hand.
Right. This is the kind of play you would make if you have a card that you need to spend 2 mana on.
And a big one, Daryl, a big reward. So he has Wrenn and 6, and his draw for the turn was Wasteland. That's, if you're going to get that Planeswalker into play, that is the land you'd want to see here.
Okay, does he have the land for the Wrenn and 6?
He does. Fetch land, finds Volcanic Island.
And, you know, I have a feeling this Wrenn and 6 is going to find a fetch land.
It just might. And, hey, there it is. So, shields are down. Daryl passes back. He knows the top card's Elvish Reclaimer. That's not one he's scared of. Knight of the Reliquary would be a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Choke? Unclear. That would be pretty interesting. And it was the last card in Zan's hand was the Knight of a Reliquary.
Oh, my gosh. And this is Ayers maybe getting a little bit punished for using that Force of Will on Sylvan Library.
It was the card that was going to get him here, and it was the last card in Zan's hand.
Right.
Now the question is, can Daryl find another Submerge? Those are his answers. He's going to start with a Ponder. It doesn't look like it's in the top 3. And as a result, Daryl's going to shuffle. He needs a Submerge. If Zan untaps, this Knight becomes an even bigger problem.
Right. Yeah, that's the spot where this Knight of the Reliquary gets to start finding whatever other lands it needs. And as it stands, if Zan can just find a way to put any land in the graveyard, this Knight's going to be able to attack Wrenn and 6 down. And that's kind of all that Ayers has going for him on the battlefield at the moment.
I find Stifle. So cantrips might send him digging again. Two lands in the graveyard for Zan means that Knight of the Reliquary out of range of something like Lightning Bolt. Here is Brainstorm. Can he find Submerge? 3 cards he does not. It's Delver.
It's like a Delver, a dual land, and something else.
Yeah. So if he can't remove it, maybe he has to try to race it. Delver of Secrets could be the way.
That is a tall order.
Yeah.
But, you know, what other option does he have?
Two on top. Daryl plays a fetch land. Looks like he may have even gotten rid of that wasteland. It's just not what the game's about anymore.
Right. Certainly not expecting to win any wasteland fights against a Knight of the Reliquary.
Yeah, and you know, Daryl had set this game up so well. It was there was just one card that was unknown in Zan's hand, and if it just had to be Knight of the Reliquary.
Right, and it feels rough, but you know, Zan kept the hand for a reason.
Right.
He just had 2 spells that Daryl had to counter, and he was only able to counter one of them.
So, Delver of Secrets was the play. And Zan untaps with Knight. And Blast Zone Sacrificed takes care of the Delver. Knight attacks
so
down the Wrenn and
perfect.
6.
Because Blast Zone is the land in the graveyard that makes the Knight a 5/5 to take out the Wrenn
that
and
is so
6.
nice.
Oh my gosh.
Now, it does mean there's a turn that Daryl could double Lightning Bolt the Knight if he had it. There's no step to protect, but Daryl only has 1 Lightning Bolt, so he passes back. Zan gets his mana again.
When Zan has an Elvish Reclaimer in hand as well, double bolt on the Knight wouldn't even feel that bad.
No, I mean, it's not a winning play. It's a play that stops him from losing.
It's a non-losing play, right.
But now, you know, Stifle in hand, Wasteland in hand. Daryl has run out of resources. He's lost his Planeswalker.
Daryl's just trying to think of the way that he stays in this game from here.
What would have to happen?
Something that turns the cards in his hand into better ones. Submerge would be a great start.
So maybe brainstorm finding the cards he needs, shuffling these ones away.
Right.
Elvish Reclaimer, and you see it on Daryl's hands there. It's just, yeah,
Yep.
this is all resolving now. This is what it's come to.
Yep.
He's hit bound to 13. He'll cast a Delver. Play a Wasteland, says go.
Knight of the Reliquary is just coming in for big chunks at this point.
Yeah, it was 6 last turn. It is a 2-turn clock. There's a fetch land in play, so Zan can make it 7 on command. Elvish Reclaimer can join on in if it'd like.
Yeah, honestly, it's hard to say. I think Reclaimer might even just get in. There is a Sajiri step in Zan's list that you could try to use to protect the knight, but at this point you gotta assume that Daryl would have done something about the knight if he could.
A swing for 9 from Zan. This is gonna send Daryl down to 4. And you might as well make it, put him down to 3. It makes your Reclaimer lethal as well. At 19, there's not too much to worry about.
Yeah.
And that's what Zan will do.
What's Daryl gonna do? Stifle it?
Doesn't it? Right, the land still goes to the graveyard. Finds Dryad Arbor.
Beat downs.
He just wants to get the last point in with the Dryad Arbor. But no, it is a swing for 10. Daryl drops to 3. And there is the Submerge that he wanted. Is it too late? It might be.
Oh, yeah. This is ugly.
They can Wasteland away the Dryad Arbor, submerge the Knight of the Reliquary. But then what? There's still a lethal Elvish Reclaimer.
You still have to chump the Elvish Reclaimer here.
Which looks like it actually will correct here. Daryl is at 4 on the attack.
So it is possible that that is a way back into this game. You submerge the Knight of the Reliquary, hit that Dryad Arbor. You really don't want to chump block this Elvish Reclaimer, but it's hard to imagine another way that you win.
Daryl says go. A draw from Zan. Did Zan draw the step?
Oh my gosh.
Wait, that's actually really bad for Zan if he did that.
Oh no.
So normally the Knight of the Reliquary would use Sajiri Step to protect itself, but now Zan, he did draw Sajiri Step, tries to give the Knight of the Reliquary protection from blue, and now the Submerge is going to work.
Is there possibly a trick here?
Probably not one that gets through Stifle.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, there's still, and you see red elemental blast on the Submerge, and that's just going to do it.
Last card in hand, the red elemental blast.
It's twice, and you see on Daryl's face, like, twice he had Zan red down to 1 card, and twice it is the last card he wants to see.
Oh my god.
First was Knight of the Reliquary, then it was red blast. So, our first match done. Zan say a 2-1 winner. Their team now 1 game away from the trophy as we shift over to the modern match. They're still in Game 3. It's Rosum, Eapen, and Matthew Dilks. If Eapen can pick up the win, that'll be it.
Right, and Eapen is on the play here. So when all that matters is trying to combo before the opponent, that's a big advantage. Even if the archetypes previously did not necessarily feel like this would break in Eapen's favor, him being a little bit more streamlined than Donegan's version that we saw last round is going to be a big, big thing for him.
So we see Witching Well from Rosum.
And Witching Well is part of what actually helps this matchup so much, is it just gives it more velocity.
And a pair of Game 3s now. John Rosum drops Game 2 to Bertarioni. So that is the last win they can give. If either Rosum, Eapen, or Bertarioni wins Game 3, that'll end the tournament. Emery and Bauble here.
And, we see a paradoxical outcome hanging out in Eapen's hand. If he can find a copy of Urza, he's in a great spot to just go. He really wants to find an Urza, and he really wants to find a way, like a token producer. Something like SCGPHILLY or Syed. But this is a great start.
Bauble checks the top card. It's Primeval Titan.
All right, there's a Primeval Titan coming.
Dilks deck plays this card. It's called Primeval Titan. He has one in his hand now. And what I do like on Bertarioni's side is he's dodged some of the faster starts from Dilks. He goes towards Astrolabe. Finds another Mox Opal. A lot of mana here. Looking for maybe a paradoxical outcome. Something to give him just a little more value here.
Get to see the cute trick here, more than likely, where you have an Astrolabe feed a not snow mana to make it a snow mana to cast an Astrolabe.
Right. Yeah, he did draw another Astrolabe here, but that is right. That will actually let him cast it.
Wouldn't you know it, Mox Opal and Watery Grave, not quite cold enough this time of year to cast Arkham's Astrolabe.
Well, it's not Icy Grave. It's Watery Grave. And there's the trick. Astrolabe draws a card.
Mox Amber is a nice pickup here.
Yeah, anything that costs 0 is a pretty good sell.
It specifically being the mana-producing one with this paradoxical outcome.
Right.
Eapen might just pick up a ton of cards in a moment.
Yeah, he says go. And, oh no, Dilks just doesn't have lands.
Oh my gosh.
And you can see it on his face. There's not much to do here.
No. And you see Eapen's playing faster. He knows.
Oh, he knows, yeah. It's like, even though it's not how it works, right? Your brain says he missed a land drop. I need to win quickly before he draws one.
Let's go.
Bauble back again with Emery. This is going to be a huge paradoxical outcome. Here is Mox Opal. Mox Amber. 5 mana. Outcome. Bouncing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
8 or 9 permanents.
Yeah, 8. 8. Draw 8. And you were hoping maybe for a Disdainful Stroke out of Dilks, but it is just a shrug. He says, yeah, that's going to work.
Do you remember when we thought Dig Through Time was too good for a
look at
effective 2 mana?
What if instead of picking 2 of the cards, you just picked all of them?
Pick 2 of the top 7. As a matter of fact, I'll pick 8 of the top 8. Thank you very much.
And what if it made mana? Paradoxical outcome here from Eapen. A huge grip of cards. So he'll start by dumping all the 0 mana ones back onto the table. Opal taps for mana again. Can he make his way all the way to Urza mana?
He might. He has another Opal in hand.
Right. Can't use Mox Amber for mana anymore because he picked up the Emery.
Just give it a second.
So 1 mana from the Opal, 2 manas from the Opal. Here's SCGPHILLY.
Oh, Mox Amber works with SCGPHILLY.
So now he has a mana. He does have an Urza. Make that 2 Urzas in his hand. I don't know that he can get to them this turn, but they'll be good next turn also.
It's a hard knock life sometimes.
And now the servos start coming to play. Our Colin Roundtree's joining the battlefield. Here is Mishra's Bauble, another Mishra's Bauble, 2 servos. And you can see it, that he's getting closer. Here's Witching Well, another servo. Scry's 2 lands.
Hard not to imagine those aren't going on the bottom, but you double check the hand.
Turns out when you draw 8 cards, you usually have enough lands for next turn. And you're right, both are sent to the bottom. And look at all these artifacts. Next turn, all of them will make mana for Urza.
Oh my gosh.
And just the construct itself that Urza brings along, going to be something like a 10-10. So I think next turn, we just see SCGPHILLY -1, turn one of these servos into a construct and just hit for a huge amount of damage.
Yeah, and, it's so hard to imagine Dilks making it out of this. Maybe engineered explosives off the top.
Engineered explosives on 0 is probably his best play. I agree.
Right.
You know, he just has to watch. Draws there. Finds Simic Growth Chamber. That makes 2 mana. Can he make a Titan here? Is it even good enough? It's a Zusa.
Okay.
So that's 2 mana. 4 mana. Castle will bring it up to 5 to 6. So he can Titan this turn. That's 6 and bounces Castle.
Is he going to turn
And
this
here's
around?
Titan. It's going to be close. I don't know. It might still be too late. But if anyway, it's going to happen this way. It's Slayer Stronghold, Boros Garrison. He's out of land drops.
This is going to let him kill Saheeli.
That's big. Yeah, even if all the servos block, it's still going to kill Saheeli.
What a turnaround.
Absolutely right. So Titan's an 8/6 haste. Trample. It attacks. Here's another trigger. He still has to bounce a land off that Boros Garrison. It's probably going to be the Slayer Stronghold.
Like it might have been the Slayer Stronghold.
Yeah, you see that's back in his hand. He's just playing it as known information. And this is really neat. The Saheeli... I mean, he has to remove the Saheeli, right?
Oh, you absolutely. Attacking for 8 when Eapen's at 18 just literally could not matter less.
Even with this Saheeli down, because this isn't a lethal attack, he still might be dead next turn. We'll see. This is really close. So he gets Teleria West. And the problem is, he can't actually... Pact Negation isn't in his hand. He actually can't transmute for it.
Right. Yeah, he's only going to have maybe 2 mana available.
It is in his hand, though. He does have the Pact. It's the fourth card down. And that might actually be enough for the turnaround.
Oh my gosh. No.
He needed... So the hand he kept wondering why it was that. He had the Azusa, he had the Titan, he had the Blue Pact, he had the Amulet. It was just a bounce land away. So he kept a risky hand with a huge upside. 1 bounce land away. He missed it for the first 2 turns, but then finally hit it. So it's Gruul Turf, Teleria West, and he actually picks up Simic Growth Chamber.
And this is so he'll have a bounce land to pair with Azusa next turn
Right.
to make multiple blue mana. If he's expecting to have to pay for the Pact anyway, he wants to make sure
Right.
that he can just have the untapped Growth Chamber.
Yeah, actually, if he has to pay for the Pact, he'll have to overpay based on this mana here. You can't make double blue without making 6.
Sure.
But that's not really the concern. So here's some bauble triggers, checking those top cards. Titan does attack down Saheeli. And back to Eapen we go. He would need enough mana to cast 2 Urzas. He has 2 Urzas. But I don't know that he has
No,
8 mana.
I don't think so, because Mox Amber doesn't tap for anything without Saheeli on the battlefield.
He has 6, maybe 7. There's another Mox Opal in hand. So 3 draws steps off all the baubles. And wait, that might... If that's an Opal...
It is.
So 5, and if he has... No, the Amber's still right. The Amber's not mana.
Right.
I say if the Amber was mana... Well, Emery will make the Amber worth mana, but he had to spend a mana to get it.
Oh, he might not play around the Pact of Negation.
So here's Arkham's
He doesn't know
Astrolabe.
it's there.
Draws its Engineered Explosives. That actually doesn't help. There's still a lot to be desired. It's not an auto win for Dilks, even when he untaps.
So, if Eapen goes for this Urza and it gets countered, does he have the ability to maybe EE on 1 to take out Amulet and turn off Dilks doing anything else next turn?
Yeah, I mean, if you get rid of Amulet, I still don't think he has enough mana for all that. Another blue mana for another Astrolabe. Eapen's got to be careful. I have to remember that Amber does not make mana.
Right.
He's now used his land drop. All right, yeah, so 3 mana. Yeah, Amber doesn't make mana. So here's 3. Opal, Legend Rules. Here's 4. Here's Urza. That's going to earn this Pact of Negation.
Oh, absolutely. You don't just...
You will lose if this happens. And Pact takes care of it. That's going to be all of Dilks' mana tied up, but that should be it for Eapen. No more mana in his hand. And he's going to have to go to clean up. Discards Prismatic Vista.
Wow.
So, upkeep. All the mana is tapped for Dilks. Now, here's the hard part. It's not a free for him to deal 18 this turn. And as far as setting up a defense to the second Urza, Dilks only has 1 Pact of Negation. Maybe Engineered Explosives on 0, but I don't actually know how much that cleans up. I guess it hits the Opal and all the servos. It's not bad, but I don't know if it's good.
It also hits Mox Amber.
Yeah, it's
So there is a point where if you do hit all of the Moxen and most of the artifacts, you have to wonder how effective Urza actually is.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a pact of Summoner's Pact in Dilks' hand. And with his land drops and Azusa, you can make 6 mana and make the Titan, but you can't give the Titan haste because Slayer Stronghold is already in his hand from last turn.
Right.
If he had left the Slayer Stronghold in play as opposed to one of these... Well, I guess he needed both the blue mana. There was no way to do it.
Right.
I was going to say you could copy it with Vesuva if it's on the board, but this is a lot of moving pieces. I don't think he has a way to get the full damage in here.
No, I agree.
So, it's going to be some simple ones. But he's going to go for an attack. Now, a question I might have is whether or not some of these Field of the Deads that the deck now plays give him another line here.
Yeah.
One where instead he just makes as many zombies as possible and calls it a day.
It depends on if he's planning to bounce the same land with Azusa over and over, because that's the point where you might not actually have enough different lands to make that happen just yet, and just have to wait another turn to do it.
Okay, gets Simic Growth Chamber Teleria West, bounces the tapped Teleria West already in play. So it's 6 damage and a T-West in Dilks' hand. He has 3 land drops to go. Can find Engineered Explosives if that's something that's helpful. It's probably his best transmute. He already has Summoner's Pact in hand.
You have to imagine that that's what he's going for.
And that's what he'll do. Transmute here. Explosive's going to come up. Doesn't really make sense to transmute for a land because Titan would have gotten it. And there are the explosives. So first land drop, Simic Growth Chamber. That untaps. And bounces Gruul Turf. Second land drop, Gruul Turf. That untaps, bounces Teleria West. Third is a castle. 6 mana. No more land drops, but another Primeval Titan.
Ooh, bouncing that castle ends up paying off big, and Breeding Pool lets it enter the battlefield untapped.
Right.
Well, so does Amulet of Vigor, but you know.
Right, that actually entered the battlefield the normal way. All right. Another Primeval Titan. Now there's enough lands that Field of the Dead comes into play. It is Field of the Dead and Sunhome. He's getting Sunhome so that next turn he can have a lethal attack.
Right, this is just him looking to kind of cover bases and close the game.
2 zombies for Dilks.
You don't actually need colored mana to pop the explosives.
So what I think this comes down to then is whether or not Roshan can actually just full combo here.
Yeah, that's what it is going to come down to at this point. These servos, Amber and Opal, are likely about to bite the dust.
And that's certainly what he wants to do on this turn, is just clear away as much as he can.
Right.
As much as he can hamstring Roshan's mana, he just needs to survive to his turn. Now, if he was going to do
he might
that...
actually wait, so...
Yeah, he would have done that before making zombies if that was the plan.
Right, so... He might just wait until there's something like an Urza in order to try and just maximize the value that he's getting from this engineered explosives. What a turnaround. From missing the third land drop to watching Dilks just kind of show why he is where he is.
And he does end up cracking the explosive now, so did lose some zombie value here.
I'm sure he'll find a way to power through this incredibly trying time.
Back to Roshan we go. He needs to win this turn. Certainly this is his last turn.
Right.
At 12, 2 Primeval Titans and a Sunhome in play. His deck does not survive that kind of turn. So he goes for Urza. That's going to resolve. That's now all his artifacts tap for a blue. Can he put together the full comeback?
All right, step 1.
Prismatic Vista. So he needs to get up to Nexus of Fate mana. Seems to be the key here.
Right, that is what he would need to happen in order to win from this point.
And right now he has 4 mana total. So Astrolabe is mana neutral, draws a card. It's Everflowing Chalice. That's another mana, but that might be the end of it.
Oh.
He has Engineered Explosives as another mana.
Okay, so activate the Urza.
Shuffle your library, exile the top card until end of turn, you play it without its mana cost. If it was Nexus of Fate, that would win it for him.
Right.
But it is Psy.
Oh. I don't see that.
No, I think that was the last try.
Right. Well, no, actually, no, this is a
Wait,
respin.
this is Psy. Hold on.
This is a
respin. A 0. You're right, 2 Thopters, a 0, so now it's 6 mana.
Theoretically, actually, each of these can just draw cards instead. That might be better. Instead of tapping 5 things for 1 look.
So 1 blue to cast Emery, mills the top 4. Paradoxical outcome, there was the Nexus, so Nexus goes back into the deck.
Just good deck thinning.
But eventually he's hoping to do the Temporal Aperture part of Urza, right? That 5 mana ability. And then he needs to just hit the Nexus of Fate.
Well, here it comes.
Here's 5 did. Dilks cut him to it. It's to another Urza. I don't think that's it. No, he extends the hand. Dilks with the full comeback, but you had to sweat it there through 2 spins there. And Matthew Dilks 2-1. So he keeps the team alive. And now, once again, it comes down to the third. Yeah, huge sigh of relief for Matthew Dilks.
Where else would this tournament have ended
It's
than on Game 3 of a Golos Mirror?
So that's Jeremy Bertarioni and John Rosum. John wanting the trophy here. Bertarioni really trying to push his way up that leaderboard. A lot on the line for both players.
It's time.
So, breeding pools to start. Rosum is on the play.
Breeding pools on both sides just warms my heart.
And Rosum starts both players now just playing the mirror here. Field of the Dead on each side.
They've got a plan.
They're going to make a lot of lands with different names. Once Upon a Time, for free. It's the first spell of Rosum's of the game. How late do you want to go here? There's another Field of the Dead in these top 5.
That's tough. There's probably a point where...
So, yeah, he did look at Field of the Dead as an option, but actually he has a different end game in mind. It's another one that requires 7 mana, but this one is Agent of Treachery.
Hey, that's kind of like a Field of the Dead when the opponent has one in play.
Okay, so it's a Field of the Dead, except you take one of theirs while you do it.
Even better.
Sounds great.
What we call value.
Temple Garden and Beanstalk Giant going on an adventure here for Rosum. Can Bertarioni keep pace? We'll see. Now, his deck does have the basic mountain in it, and that's because he's playing Fires of Invention. And he has his own Beanstalk Giant to send off on an adventure. So, 4 lands apiece. And it is going to be a turn 5. I was wondering whether it was going to be Golos. It's a different 5-drop. It is Kenrith the Returned King from John Rosum. 1 copy in the main for him.
Gotta feel pretty relieved if you're on Bertarioni's side.
Yeah, we've seen this card be exceptional in the late game, but maybe not so much in the mid game. But speaking of mid game, here's a card. Fires of Invention. This is the Mirror Breaker. This is why Jeremy played this deck. He plays it on 4, and then the second copy goes for Circuitous Route. This is what his deck was about.
This is both good and bad if you're on Rosum's side, because if Bertarioni is casting the Circuitous Route before making a land drop here, it's because he doesn't have a land drop. Which, on one hand, sounds good, because that means no zombies from Field of the Dead, but it's kind of frightening because there's this Fires of Invention, and you know Bertarioni is sitting on gas.
5-minute damage. Bertarioni down to 15. And you're right, it can cut both ways. Now, what Bertarioni's deck does, 4 copies of Fae of Wishes in the deck. There is a Fires of Invention going on. That can do some pretty scary things.
Oh, absolutely. There's basically an entire wish board for Bertarioni here.
You know, and some of them very good against ramp decks. Unmoored Egos in the board. On this board, Nicol Bolas Dragon Gods here. If there's a Fae of Wishes in Bertarioni's hand, it's going to be hard to beat. It looks like there is a land in Bertarioni's hand, so...
It's an awkward position where there's an Agent of Treachery in Bertarioni's hand where you want to steal Field of the Dead before you play this land, but you can't play the Agent of Treachery if you don't play the land first.
At some point, does he have to worry about just stealing Kenrith? It's a 5/5. It's doing something.
Yeah, and Kenrith is one of the things that when you have a Fires of Invention, you just get to sink so much mana into this card while also playing a normal game of Magic. Quote-unquote normal, where 2 of your spells are for each turn.
Normal, except for the part where you pay mana.
Terms and conditions, Matthias. Terms and conditions.
I mean, I understand this. I normally don't pay mana for the cards I like to cast, so this seems pretty reasonable.
Hey, you pay green 4 all the time.
That is true. That's true. But I'm not really tapping lands for it in a way that makes sense.
Sure. You're just tapping 3 lands.
Or throw one and it's
times.
1 and it's in my hand.
Yeah.
I'll tap this land in my hand. I'll tap it 3 times.
Yeah, I don't really understand what I just watched, but he sure did it.
So land 7. Simic Guildgate gets 1 zombie. Agent of Treachery is his first spell. Will he steal a land? Will he steal a Kenrith? Looks like and you could tell that's what they were discussing before he made the play. Now he makes the play and is thinking, wait, is this, which one's the one?
It's a Veil of Summer.
Doesn't matter. Veil of Summer. He'll steal nothing. He'll get a 2/3.
In the immortal words of British philosopher, William Wonka, you get nothing.
Is it even short for William? That's the part of that whole story. It's like... So, last thing though, Fae of Wishes goes on an adventure. That was Jeremy's second spell. Looks like he got the card Shared Summons. 3 green. Search your library for up to 2 creature cards with different names. Reveal them. put them into your hand and then shuffle your library.
Hard not to imagine this doesn't find Agent of Treachery and Golos.
I like those cards. They are good here. That will lead to many Field of the Dead triggers.
Oh, yeah. It's a big field. You don't want to know what put all these zombies there.
Zombies. Circuitous Route from Rosum. Gonna get 2 more zombies. No red mana. They can't have haste.
Speak of the devil.
Hey, there's the red mana. Also known as the Devil. And Kenrith swings on in. 2-3 and a 2-2 is not quite enough power on the battlefield to deal with this. So it looks like it's just going to be a chump block.
Yeah, and this is the spot where the zombie is probably just worth 5 life.
Yeah. There's so many more zombies to come.
Exactly.
Back to Bertarioni we go. He only gets 2 spells.
Was that a Golos off the top? Maybe he doesn't even cast
You
Shared
don't even
Summons
find
this
shared
turn.
summons and don't even cast it. So, has to pick the 2 spells he wants for the turn.
And there's so much to think about here. Shared Summons in particular. Like, we defaulted to saying Golos and Agent of Treachery, but Kenrith is no slouch. Hydroid Crisis, you don't want to cast it for free, but that's just a ton of cards.
So, spell number 1, Shared Summons. The first question is, does it resolve? Agent of Treachery feels like it just has to be one of them here.
Absolutely. Best card in your deck. Well, Field of the Dead's the best card, but Agent of Treachery is a Field of the Dead, so it's this whole thing.
It's your opponent's Field of the Dead. Agent and Golos. So, no, and Kenrith. No Golos. That telegraphs that he's planning to steal the Field of the Dead, not his opponent's Kenrith.
Or just wants to be really positive that he ends up with a Kenrith.
Agent of Treachery is the second play. Is there a Veil of Summer? There is not. And is he going to steal the Kenrith, or is it the Field of the Dead? Looks like they're looking at it. He says Kenrith. Kenrith going to make a zombie into a 3/3 before it comes over to Jeremy's side. So maybe on that summons it was just he needed to be sure that if a Veil of Summer happened, that he'd still get the Kenrith.
Yeah, Kenrith is just that important in these kinds of matchups, and one of the big things in these Fires of Invention decks that you want to be able to do is use your mana.
Right, and that's exactly what I was looking at. That's why Kenrith is so good here. Because Jeremy still has all his mana.
Yeah, look, there's 8 mana and a Kenrith.
I wonder if we go back to the last turn where he chump blocked with a zombie. Do you think it's possible that he wanted to chump block with an Agent of Treachery?
Agent is too much toughness.
Oh.
That's the problem.
Okay. So Agent of Treachery now stealing his Fires of Invention.
Ooh. You're kind of playing with fire when you do that sort of thing.
Fires
But
of
when Rosum
Vengeance. Okay.
All right, well, I'm out.
All right.
Good broadcast, everybody. Had a great weekend.
Now Rosum is playing with fire. How about that? He has another spell he can cast this turn.
Oh, he's cooking with fire is what he's doing. And now Bertarioni's allowed to play on Rosum's turn.
Yeah, now it switches around. Now the other player can play instance. And 4 mana on Bertarioni's side. Make it. So second agent was going to steal back the Kenrith. So drew a card and gained 5 life, but now all the cards are back on Rosum's side.
Rosum is so far ahead now. So the big thing that this fire's represented was Bertarioni's way to catch back up next turn.
Right, because it's worth so much mana.
Exactly.
But now that Rosum has stolen all the cards back, he holds all the cards. Let's see.
Rosum's trying to figure out where he wants to put this +1 counter from Kenrith, because theoretically the agents could bounce off of one another, or he could kill one, but it's kind of risky to kill them.
Right, does he actually want them in the graveyard? Once they're in the graveyard, Kenrith can start bringing them back.
Right, so as it stands, there's 8 coming across, and making that 9 is probably going to be the make or break when you're attacking in chunks of 2. So putting someone to 11 here, and then presumably having all of the pumps on the battlefield that Rosum does next turn, every point coming across really, really counts.
I mean, if you really don't want to put an agent in the graveyard, he could have pumped his opponent's agent.
Ooh.
But I do like this. 9 damage comes in. Zan is down to 11.
Bertarioni's trying to find out how do you get back into this game. They do not have any Realm Cloak Giants in their deck.
No, Bertarioni's sweepers in the board. I mean, he has actually a planar cleansing in his wish board.
Few mana short of that.
Few mana short. Yeah, but it would clean this up.
Right.
If he can survive to it, I think that's the card. I don't know how he does.
Oh, that's tough. Next turn, Rosum can even Beanstalk Giant and then give it haste and trample.
That's going to be pretty hard to beat. So Agent of Treachery swings. Rosum will take the damage. Now really, he's going to ask, see if Bertarioni can do anything. Maybe a time wipe.
Okay, a Deafening Clarion mops a bunch up.
But not enough. Not yet. Circuitous Route. Gonna get 2 more zombies. This is... Well, hold on. Beanstalk... And John Rosum, he points and says, Beanstalk Giant, haste. That kills you, right? And I think it does.
Is that it?
The giant's pretty big. They're gonna get trampled. They're gonna get haste. 2 zombies is 4 toughness. That's 15. Let's count some lands here. 3, 6, 9, 10 lands of trample. 15 points of trample. 18 points of trample. 4 points of toughness. I think 14's coming across.
At least. Absolute minimum. Kenrith has pumps. There's so much here.
And John Rosum says, he says it again. He's like, this is going to be my play. I have the Fire's Invention. I'm going to cast the Beanstalk Giant. I'm going to tap this red mana.
And Bertarioni's going to make him do it.
Oh,
wait.
Wait.
Thornwood Falls gains a life. Hold
gains
the
a wait. No. 12. Now it's exactly 12.
He gained a life, though.
Okay. So... Rosum can gain life too. He's going to tap all his mana except for that red mana to make a giant Hydroid Krasis. Then he's going to cast Beanstalk Giant as his second spell for the turn.
Oh my gosh.
And that's going to do it. Rosum picks up the win 2-1, and they are the winners. It's Daryl Ayers, Matthew Dilks, and John Rosum.
There is that upset we were talking about. Going into this match, we expected Bertarioni to be the favorite, and Rosum was going to have to play so well in order to flip that into his favor, and he didn't.
He did. No, with the comeback there, it's really what we expected.
Yeah, unbelievable. Both of those games felt like it just came right down to it. We saw Dilks, he missed his third land drop in a big mana deck.
Right.
And won.
And then it goes on to Rosum, and this is for the second round in a row. First Edgar Maguiech, then against Jeremy Bertarioni. He's got to turn things around and pick up a win in Game 3. And it was close. It was really close there.
Right. That was one where it felt like every single interaction was one thing away from just completely slipping away.